Okay, we are joined again this morning by the one and only Geoff Thompson, also known as Geoff Buys Cars. He has got a X or Twitter page and also a fantastic YouTube channel under Geoff Buys Cars. He describes himself as a writer and a car guy with a small YouTube channel, not that small. He's got over 100,000 people on there. He just wants to be left alone to enjoy family and road trips, and he tries not to use Twitter unsuccessfully, I might add, a little bit like myself. Welcome back this morning, Geoff. How is life treating you this March? We're into March. Can you believe it?
Great to be back, Rick. We are into March, and I'm just back from a family break. Actually, I took a couple of weeks out, and I went digitally dark. I managed to switch my phone off and leave it off. First time I've pretty much ever done that. And you know what? It was quite hard getting back into real life. I kept thinking, right, I'll switch my phone back on today, and another day went by, and another day, and another day, and I didn't miss it.
No, it's a beautiful thing if you can cleanse yourself completely from it. I used to do overseas trips to Africa for long periods of time, and when I was there was no internet, no phones, no running water, no electricity. It sounds like hell to most people, but you see, after a few days, you start to realize, hey, I'm starting to live real life again with real people. And then when you come back into reality and you switch that thing back on and you start getting buzzed and pinged and people harassing you and stressing you out, you realize actually it's not something you should lament the loss of. It's something you should celebrate being without. But it's part of I suppose it's part of our day-to-day life, isn't it, mate? There's no escaping it anymore in the West.
Yeah, that's right. And with the way the YouTube channel has gone as well, although it started as a car channel, my email inbox is full of pretty much everything that's going on everywhere around the world. And as you well know, I was just joking with pre-production before we came live this morning. What are we talking about today? Well, it could be anything. There's that much going on. It does seem to be that, there's fires being lit everywhere and on both sides. And it's really hard to keep on top of where we're at. I joked before I went away saying, hopefully by the time I'm back in 2 weeks, everything will be pretty much where I've left it. But yeah, it does seem to change day by day at the moment.
It does. One of the things that we talked about last time you were on, you're a petrol head, same as me, or a diesel head, whichever way you want to look at it. You like your internal combustion engine cars. There's been a push over the last few years to try and how would you say, coerce people down the EV route. And of course, there's these net zero fantasies that the government had, get rid of all new internal combustion engine cars by 2030. That can's been kicked a little bit down the road. Since the last time you came on Tesla, Elon Musk himself actually put a post out on Twitter, almost like a fire sale. He says, look, we're not going to grant $1,000 off our Teslas because we know it's slow during the winter months. I thought that was very odd coming from him. It's a Mickey Mouse discount as well. But for him to actually admit things are quite slow at the minute, I thought was telling. But there's another story I want to discuss with you now. They're now pushing the development of a Tesla's new Roadster. They say they're teaming up with SpaceX to build a Roadster, a car that will do 0 to 60 in less than 1 second. It's mind-blowing. They're going to use rocket thrusters on it. Musk is saying this is going to be the greatest car of all time. I don't know. It sounds good, but it smells a little bit of desperation to me, doesn't it? We're going to throw a rocket booster in this. We're going to use space-age technology. You're going to hit 0 to 60 in less than a second. That should excite me because I like quick accelerating cars. I like a bit of torque, Geoff, but I'm not excited about that. I think it's a bit lame and a bit desperate. What do you think?
I reckon greatest car of all time. I should probably get in touch with him and have a word because I think it was done by Volvo in about the year 1999. We reached a point, we discussed this last time, we reached a point in the late 90s, early 2000s where cars were doing everything a car could do and lasting forever. And ever since then, all they've been doing is bolting on bits that you don't need, that don't make the car a better car. Now, I read this yesterday as well about this new Tesla Roadster and the fact that he's going to somehow achieve 0 to 60 in 1 second. Who on earth needs 0 to 60 in 1 second? I mean, I drove a Model S Plaid not long ago that was, less than 3 seconds, I think, to 60. And I did it once and I nearly fell out of the car. So who needs that in a car? I'm not interested in all of these things that he's saying. Who needs rocket boosters on a car and just to show off on TikTok or whatever it is that these people need to do? Why not just try and build the very best car based on all of the attributes that we understand of being a car? It's just going to be another toy. And what you said on your intro to that there as well, with interesting things going on in the EV market, Tesla reducing prices. We've also got some real positive stuff happening from the big manufacturers in Europe. You've got Audi and Germany now making major changes to their EV operation and sort of slowing down, as it were, what was their initial plan. And I think we're going to start to see pushback from the car manufacturers on this. But yeah, I don't need a Tesla Roadster that does 0 to 60 in 1 second. I think that'll just make you sick. What's the point in that?
I think we'd be liars if we said we didn't get excited at the thought of a fast 0 to 60 time, because most men, women, I'm not wrong in saying this, they will look at, how many seats are in there? Can I get the family in there comfortably? Guys, generally speaking, say, okay, that's fine, but what's the 0 to 60 time? And I can remember when I bought my first quick-ish car. My very first car, by the way, was a Volkswagen Polo, 1988. It had 4 gears. It was a 1-litre engine, and it did 55 miles per hour downhill maximum. Okay, so the 0 to 60 time in that thing was about 50 seconds. Okay, I graduated from that into, I remember my first little quick car was a little Citroen Saxo VTR. It was a little 1.6 8 valve, and it did 0 to 60 in about 9 seconds. And I thought I'd been put into the Millennium Falcon. And then I evolved onto Subaru Impreza. Bought myself an Impreza Turbo in 98. It did 0 to 60 in 5.4. And I genuinely thought I was on a fairground ride about to take off. But that was about as fast as I needed to go, Geoff, even being interested in quick cars and acceleration. The Plaid model that you mentioned, 0 to 60 in 3, is literally eviscerating. So to do it in 1 second, I can only imagine there could be health implications to that too. It could literally kill some people. Could it not? Could it not?
I think it could. And like you say, if Elon Musk has got all this technology, I think what we want is we want a time machine, because you touched there on the Saxo VTR. I also had a Citroen Saxo VTR, and
beautiful.
That was without a doubt the fastest car in the world. So if we're talking about making the fastest car in the world, well, give me a time machine. I'll go back to being 18 and driving my Saxo VTR, and that's where we'll be. Fastest car in the world. I think anything when you're 18 is the fastest car in the world. But like you say, 0 to 60 in 1 second, we're going to have crashes and we're going to have health problems.
And where can you do 0 to 60 in 1 second? Because even if you're racing someone off the lights, let's say you pull up in your new SpaceX Roadster and you've got a Bugatti Veyron sitting beside you, with 1,000 horsepower, and you decide to race off the lights. If you hit that warp speed mode, by the time 1 second elapses, you're probably going to rear end someone or be at the next set of traffic lights. It's completely uncontrollable. I can only imagine it can be done for showboating on a track. I can't see how that's actually applicable on the road. And surely that's what I mean. Even the people that are attracted by things like that, the high-tech stuff and the fast acceleration, they've got to be asking, my body can't handle that. My insurance company won't entertain me to drive that, and I'll probably end up killing someone as a result of buying it. I don't know. It seems like a real mess on Tesla's part in this, but what do I know? I'm just an average consumer like you, but I wouldn't be buying one of those, would you?
I think, again, it just goes to show that there's no money in making sensible cars for real people. And we've seen this across the whole EV spectrum. There's been very little push towards actual sensible cars that can be bought and paid for by actual sensible people. A lot of these EVs are £100,000, $100,000 4-ton SUVs, and we're seeing the premium manufacturers getting involved as well. Lotus have just launched one. You've got Rolls-Royce now are launching some ridiculous thing. And it just goes to show that the movement never was about moving humanity to a cleaner way of personal propulsion. I don't know what it was about, but I definitely feel like the whole thing was a bit of a farce, and the sales figures certainly seem to be proving that at the moment.
Mm-hmm. They do, because the bottom line is it's reflected in dealerships, it's reflected in prices and big discounts, and also, of course, insurance companies not really wanting to touch these products anymore. The EV market, this is an article that's coming out from an Irish news outlet, News Talk FM. The EV market has become so unsustainable that a Wicklow Irish car dealership no longer accepts them as trade-ins. And, it's very offensive, isn't it? You drive your old knackered car to the garage, you almost expect them to take a trade-in, to get a new car. Even if they rip you off on the price, at least they'll take it off your hands. But, now some dealerships are saying, Not interested, don't want your trade in, go and get rid of it somewhere else and then come back to me with the cash. That must be a little shot across the bows for EV owners too, as well as massively increased insurance premiums in some cases. Is the bubble bursting, do you think?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because, like you say, you do expect when you're buying a new car from a dealer that they'll take any old car in part exchange and give you a nominal 500 quid because they're just going to chuck it on a trailer and send it to auction. But I've noticed, particularly in some of the EV owner Facebook groups, there was a post that I screenshotted the other day. And it was in the electric Mini, you know, the little electric Mini, quite a nice looking thing. I don't think it's got a huge amount of range. But there's a post from someone that was just merely asking the group saying, has anybody else managed to part exchange their Mini? I can assume, you know, whether they were moving from an electric Mini to a newer electric Mini or whether they were going back to petrol or diesel. But they weren't able to find a dealer, like you said in the intro there, that was willing to even take the car in part exchange. So if dealers aren't even willing to take the risk and chuck it on a trailer and send it to auction, then there's some major problems there. You know, the supply of EVs is far outstripping demand at the minute. And I think if we checked on Auto Trader in the UK, particularly with the high-end stuff like the Porsche Taycan, that has had epic depreciation, there's something like 750 of them for sale at the moment. Well, are there 750 people looking to buy one right now? We've just got far more supply than we have demand, and it seems to be across the board.
You would have thought as well, you know, buying and selling second-hand cars or trading in cars, you know about this. There were a lot of brands of car that famously held onto their value quite well. So you had BMW, you had Audi, you had Volkswagen, you had Mercedes. Generally speaking, they held onto their value best after, you know, a 3-year period of ownership. You went to get a car from a dealer, you pay a premium on it. But I think a lot of people, when they bought cars, especially vastly inflated prices on the EV market, there would have been a mindset there, well, this cost me an arm and a leg, and it's made by Porsche, for example, you know, the Taycan, the flagship model. You would have had an expectation there as a Porsche punter that, you know, 3 years down the line, if I come to trade this thing, it's going to be worth something rather than being, you know, refused potentially. I'm not interested in your Porsche Taycan. Can't get rid of them at all. Can't even give them away. It's maybe signaling, it's maybe telling that the prestige brands, you know, BMW have the range of EVs out there. You mentioned Rolls-Royce are coming out with products. I can only see people like, you know, oil sheiks buying things like that, you know, as, show off pieces for their garages. People like normal people at the minute are getting their eyes well and truly open on this one. And the fact that dealers are actually refusing to take these cars in, I think is a very damning statement.
Yeah, I fully agree. And you'll see the sort of pro EV people always be saying things like, oh, well, you know, any car will depreciate the minute you drive it off the forecourt. And that's true. You know, any car, petrol, diesel, whatever, will lose money when it's brand new. But the rate that these cars are losing money is so far over and above the normal rates of depreciation. You know, generally depreciation will level out after year 3 or at least slow down, but we're not seeing that with the electric cars. But as well, like we touched on, it's the discounts that you're able to get at the dealership when the cars are brand new. And we've seen unprecedented levels of brand new car discounts just to try and shift these things. And we don't know where the depreciation is going to stop. You know, the Taycan's a good example because it's, like you say, it's from a premium brand. It's a very expensive car. We're already starting to see these at sort of numbers that begin with a 4, so 40-odd thousand pounds. And I'm not quite sure where it's going to end. But the other side of this as well is the Taycan, when it first came out, is one of those cars that had a waiting list, as was the Volkswagen ID Buzz, you know, VW's cool new electric camper van. When I first started seeing about those, it was a 2-year wait list. And now if I wanted one, I could probably get one this afternoon. So what's happened to all the people that were queuing up to buy these things? Where's all that hype gone? You know, and I think people are sort of waking up to the fact that for some people, these cars work absolutely fantastically. And I'm not going to deny that at all. If you can charge at home, if you've got cheap electricity, if you're set up and you've got a private driveway and all the rest of it, then right now is a great time to go and get one. I saw a Honda EV advertised the other day, £179 deposit and £179 a month. Now, that is ludicrously cheap, especially with a lot of the older cars like I drive. You're paying £30, £40 a month road tax. So really, when you take the amount that you're actually spending on road tax and take it off the lease, that's a brand new car for £130, £140 a month. It's starting to look quite attractive if you can make it work for yourself, and that's the kind of car that you want.
Yeah, that's the key as well. I think you said the last time you came on, and I agree. If you want to drive an EV, if it works for you, then fill your boots. I think we have a problem, as in people like yourself and myself have a problem when the government are trying to force us down an EV route when we patently don't want to be forced down that route. That's where the issues come up. And just in closing here, let's talk about car dealers as well, because obviously there's a lot of businesses in the UK, car dealerships, they employ an awful lot of people. Is there a danger, Geoff, in your humble opinion, that maybe dealers that looked at the outlook that the government was putting forward maybe started to invest heavily into having high levels of EV stock or focusing on EV type vehicles? Now they're sitting with forecourts where they can't really shift the vehicles and they're not taking any trade-ins. Could we see maybe a spate of dealer closures over the next 2 to 3 years as the reality of this bubble bursting hits the dealers? They've maybe invested or they went too hard on EVs, speculating that this may be the way forward, when in reality there's not the uptake there that they once thought there would be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've got a lot of things going on in particularly in UK dealerships at the moment. So the government have now said that dealerships need to sell a specific amount of EVs. So I think there's a number of things that are going to happen here. We are going to see their numbers being affected, the bottom line, because as we know, the cars aren't selling at the rate that they need them to be selling. I think we're going to be dealing with some pretty major mis-selling problems as well, with the dealers are under so much pressure to shift these EVs. I think people are walking into the showroom who really are not EV customers and are being steered towards them because the dealers need to hit these numbers. And also you've got the major problem where if secondhand EVs aren't selling, it might be that people are moving customers into brand new EVs instead of secondhand. So it's going to make the secondhand market go even further. Because if you walk into a dealership saying, hey, I quite fancy a secondhand EV, it looks like they're cheap right now, the dealer's going to go, well, have you considered a new one? Because on a new one, we can do you X amount and it will be, brand new, fresh off the forecourt, which again is going to further compound the problems in the secondhand market. And I think a lot of people have been saying that this can only really shore up the values of petrol and diesel cars in the secondhand market. If you're going to a dealer and the dealer's only really pushing you to EVs, it's sort of EV all the doors over there, well then maybe you are going to go look for a 2, 3, 4-year-old petrol or diesel car. And if there's more people looking for those cars, then it's going to shore up the value of those, which again is going to increase that gap between the price and the value of internal combustion cars versus electric, despite the fact that this whole push to electric is coming from the government, it's coming from the dealers. But actually the market itself might just go, do you know what, we still want petrol and diesel, and those prices are going to stay strong. So I think interesting times ahead for car dealers. I really do think we've got a bit of a perfect storm, and I do think we're going to see some businesses under a lot of pressure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thank you very much, by the way, for your input in this one. We're actually up the time on this, Geoff. Time goes by so quickly when we're talking cars and internal combustion engine vehicles. Just to remind people, you can hook up with Geoff on Twitter or X at Geoff, that's Geoff, buys cars. And also, please check out his content, subscribe and support him on YouTube at Geoff buys cars. It's a great channel. And he doesn't just talk about cars on there as well. I had a little peruse last night. You were talking about farmers' protests and EE phone rip-offs as well. So as you rightly pointed out, you're not just a car guy, you do other things, but that name of yours, Geoff Buys Cars, it does kind of pigeonhole you a bit. You might want to change it to Geoff Buys Cars and talks about farmers and phone rip-offs and geopolitics and jobs, etc., but it doesn't quite roll off the tongue the same way, does it?
Can I just add before we finish that this afternoon, talking about 1 second cars that can do 0 to 60 in 1 second, I'm going to be taking my 1969 Renault 10 onto a dyno. It's 55 years old, and I'm going to put it on a dyno and see how much horsepower it's got. So yes, I might rant about lots of different things, but cars are what I'm here for. So it's always going to be car content on the channel. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure, Geoff, and listen, we'll stay in touch and get you back again sooner rather than later, I hope and believe. That's Geoff Buys Cars. You have a great weekend, mate. I'll be back after this short break with Aisling O'Loughlin from Ireland, talking about the state of play over there. So don't go away. Stay tuned for more here on TNT, Today's News Talk.